Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Livestream on M.A.I.N. And wait, you're not Marino. What's happening here?
Yeah, you know what? I just had a makeover over the weekend.
Okay. Well,
No.
for those who are
Hi.
not familiar, welcome, Kat. Kat Morgan. You are on the stream. This is
It's fun to be here. I've been enjoying watching your AI stuff and MCP stuff recently, and so thanks for inviting me up.
Oh, absolutely. You've enjoyed watching us fumble through documents and write bad Python code?
Yes, the vibe coding, just like the camaraderie there, the let's fail and fail and fail until we accidentally don't fail. It's just kind of a whole tradition.
Yeah, absolutely. And hi, Dewey. Welcome to the stream. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. Oh, wait. Dewey joined, I think, from Blue Sky, was commenting just a minute ago. So thank you for joining.
You say, accidentally don't fail. That is precisely how I seem to succeed in any of my projects, is just like bang on it enough and it just works. Yeah, it's always that sea of red until there's like a blip of green. And then I don't trust that green. I don't know about you. Like that.
Celebrate those new error messages. It's not the same error message as last time. We're doing something right.
It's progress. It's moving in a direction. Who knows if it's actually progress?
You are eliminating failures a little bit at a time.
Maybe adding new ones. Who knows?
Chaos.
Yes, I have a whole podcast called Chaos Lever where we talk about technology and chaos. So how about that?
Oh, really? I need to check that
out. So Marina wanted you to come on, and I did too, to talk about something.
Yeah.
What did you want to talk about?
Well, I honestly thought we were just going to randomly talk about random AI landscape and app development and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But in the last couple of weeks, I just sat down and decided to try my hand at building a RAG app. So a chatbot that's augmented with chunks of relevant data. We call that retrieval augmented generation. So when you're creating a chatbot that can do generative responses and you want to specifically add information to it to make it more relevant to a specific task or subject. And so I've kind of been in a rut with just being frustrated at how effective or sometimes ineffective documentation can be, or how just the bit rate of actually getting information that you need out of docs is a little bit slow when you consider the entire, Google search, Google foo routine, all the way through to finding what you need and then actually doing something useful with it. And honestly, not to drink the AI Kool-Aid too hard, but sometimes when you copy paste a long log and drop it in Claude or whatever, and it's just like, these are the error the logs that you should actually be paying attention to for the symptom that you're troubleshooting. I have spent hours and hours and hours crawling manually through source reports and even made some, basic scripts to help dissecting source reports. Those are actually packages of logs that you can pull from a Linux server, for example. So it's like an SOS report, right? What we call them source reports. And they're just a package of all the logs from a system and diagnostic materials and things like that. And it's, dozens and dozens of files at least, and some of them tens of thousands of lines long. And it's good information, but it's a lot to crawl through if you're like trying to debug stuff. And the same for documentation and stuff. So I just wanted an easier way to actually chunks any arbitrary content, drop it into a vector database so that a chatbot can retrieve semantically relevant information. And now I have this like MkDocs thing where you can write documentation in Obsidian and it produces a GitHub pages built out of MkDocs, and it chunks those documentation into Milvus vector database. and it has a little Python app in front of it that I am slowly but surely getting to the point where I can hook an MCP server into it. So if you just want to hook that directly into your like ChatGPT desktop app, or if you want to hook it into like VS Code as an MCP server for Copilot or Windsurf or Cursor. The intent is to do a lot less prompting and a lot more just effective like development, or a lot of times when you're building a conversation for engineering purposes, you have to drop a lot of content before you actually start the meaningful question and answer stuff. So hopefully this bridges that gap.
So you dropped a lot of terms and words in there, and I feel like we need to back way up.
Okay. Yeah. I did not expect it to blow up as much as it did as an application either. I thought it was just going to be a little Python script and that was it, but now it's this like multi-container madness.
Okay, so all right, so is the sauce reports you're talking about involved in this other docs thing you're building, or is that two separate potential applications?
That was just another analogy of like what kind of stuff you can put into a RAG database. So like if you have something really expansive like Kubernetes and Istio documentation and you want to drop it into a RAG database so that you can chat with that documentation, that would be a lot of content to crawl through manually.
Mm-hmm.
Google Foo will get you there. You can search engine your way to it eventually, but it's not necessarily going to be as easy to find. And so the idea is any arbitrary content that you want to drop into your RAG database, you can then just use Open Web UI or an MCP interface to chat with the content.
Okay, so this is about gathering existing documentation and getting it in a format that you can use as the RAG. So is that the vector database part that you're talking about?
Yeah, so it's either taking existing documentation and throwing it in there, or writing your own original notes and documentation and then doing that.
Okay, I'm like building the diagram in my head of what you're outlining here. So is Obsidian what you would typically write your docs in, and that's why you included that?
Yeah, so typically I write documentation, like formal documentation, and something more advanced, like using an IDE such as Cursor, or I use NeoVim a lot, so I could do that. But at the same time, I do use Obsidian for less structured information, just general purpose notes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I also know that not everybody wants to mess with a whole entire IDE setup. Mine does take a little work to maintain because there's so many moving pieces involved in it with dev containers and all that other stuff. And so just trying to make sure that there's still a low barrier to entry. And even if I want to write something down and jot it down without the complexity of, do I really want to fire up VS Code right now? I can just type out whatever I want in Obsidian, and that still drops into the exact same pipeline that my documentation is published from, and that feeds my chatbot.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, all my documentation I write in VS Code and Markdown. That's just, I don't even think about it now, but you're right. If you're just taking some simple notes, I still use OneNote because I am old.
Yeah, I love OneNote, but I also am just not really attached to the Microsoft ecosystem. And Obsidian is about the next best thing that's commonly used. It's not as collaborative as I would like, so I kind of get around that a little bit with, storing the vault in GitHub.
Okay.
It's not real-time collaborative, but it's still sort of functional.
Yeah, not to go off on a whole tangent about Microsoft stuff, but Microsoft has really been driving me crazy with their Office updates lately.
Oh, really?
Well, it seems like they've absolutely abandoned OneNote. Like they don't even care about it. It hasn't gotten
Oh,
any kind of
what's that?
features or updates in years.
Well, can I interest you in Obelisk?
Is Obelisk different than Obsidian?
Obelisk is just, well, I mean, you use Obsidian, and then Obelisk is what I named this project that
Then yes, you can. You
yeah,
can interest me in that.
cool. You know what? I should
Oh,
probably actually, is it okay to drop the link?
yeah.
Let me go grab
Dewey
that.
says OneNote could have been so much. I know. I know
Yeah,
OneNote. It was so much. And
it
then
was. Are you
like I
kidding?
moved
Yeah.
off of Evernote for OneNote and I was very excited about it. And then they don't, I don't know why.
Mhm.
I don't know why Microsoft is like, no, that's the product we don't care about. Let's create 6 new ones. Like, there was one like, there was a product that was supposed to replace PowerPoint, sort of Wave or something, and it was terrible.
Oh no. Oh, I should jump into the chat. I haven't even been paying attention.
All good.
Need to connect to YouTube's.
So is Obelisk the project that you're talking about that takes the stuff in Obsidian and puts it into the chatbot?
I need to probably break up the name because I'm looking at this mono repo right now, and it's got MkDocs in it. It's got the Obelisk Python code, which is what the actual service is built on, for the vector database and the pipeline that chunks and embeds the vectors. I've got multiple Docker files for different parts of the containerized service. There's honestly too much in this repo. I'm going to break out the container builds at some point once the whole structure makes a lot of sense and I'm not moving as many parts as fast. So there will be the containers that the microservice is built on, and then that'll probably be wrapped in the Obelisk Helm chart. It's kind of how I'm imagining that.
Okay. Do you
It's
want to?
currently Docker composed, so you can run it locally on ARM Macs or on Intel and NVIDIA. It's GPU accelerated. I don't have the TPU acceleration built in yet for Ollama, because Ollama is what runs Llama 3 locally, so that you're running local models.
Okay.
But I'm beginning to support optionally like ChatGPT and Anthropic Claude. So that, because I was thinking it's kind of neat being able to run the whole thing locally, but it is a little bit slower unless you're dropping a lot of change on that hardware. So being able to run this whole stack in like code spaces and just connect, back to ChatGPT or whatever is a feature I ended up kind of wanting for faster development. And that's probably going to be how I do the CI/CD testing too, but we'll see.
I found the repository. Dropped a link in the chat for everyone.
Yes, sweet. I'm sorry. I was in the middle of grabbing the link that the Obelisk docs are. Oh no, it won't let me post.
That's okay. I gotcha.
Okay. There's also the Obelisk documentation site, so you can kind of see how the docs themselves render.
Okay.
If you look at the Git repo, there's a link off to the right side.
Nice. All right. Gonna make me accept some cookies.
I know, right? The cookie's just for, dark mode and light mode, because sweet. Hey, look, are we about to get Marino back?
We might be. Yes.
Nice.
Marino is here. He just got called away on
yeah,
some fire alarm going on.
Right. Saving the day as always.
I feel this happened a couple weeks ago. Same sort of scenario. And
yeah,
I feel like he's just avoiding guests, which seems mean.
Oh, nice. I know. He just can't handle the competition.
Fair enough. So, did you want to share your screen and walk us through some of what's going on with the documentation or the repository?
Yeah. Okay. So first off, I'll get this.
Sorry for just sneaking in here, y'all.
Very sly.
Did you go save the day and then also come back in time to?
Yeah. I figured I'd give them max 15 minutes, and then I will probably get back to it probably after we're done our stream.
Yep. All right. Let's see. So I'm gonna share a window if I can find the right window. Hopefully. Allow and window. Let's see. I think this one is going to be it. Ah, come on. No. Are you going to come back to life? My Bluetooth is going nuts.
Uh-oh. We lost Cat.
Oh no, we lost Cat. Hopefully Cat comes back. Cat usually does come back, so I'm not worried.
We know she's got at least 8 more lives, right?
There she is. Welcome back.
Okay, I'm back. I don't know what happened. I should probably reboot the Mac. It has a little bit of a ridiculous uptime right now. Okay. And it is running the whole Obelisk stack with Llama locally. So I have to actually do...
You probably had to do that thing where every time you have to share a new window, it tells you, oh, you don't have the right permissions. And yeah, I think I've had to do that a number of times on the stream. It's always fun.
System settings and...
There we go.
Oh, is it working? Why is it
working
asking for permissions? It's like you don't have permissions, but it's working. Okay.
Looks good to me.
So, see if I can turn that off. There we go. All right. So if I resize this just a little bit. There we go. Okay. I am not a front-end dev. Slightly customized MkDocs material theme to build this, and it deserves so much more. But ignore this. The cloud is just a placeholder. The first document that I just dropped in there. But basically, the entire pipeline that feeds the chatbot also feeds this documentation site, so that anytime you're writing Markdown, you push it to Git, whether that's written with your IDE like VS Code or Cursor, or if you're writing your docs with Obsidian. And then once it hits the Git repo, there will be CI/CD, or actually no, there is CI/CD that builds the MkDocs in, or builds the Markdown into MkDocs content. So basically you are, let's see, where is mine? Nope, that's not the one I want. I refactored the containerization and the Python in the last few days. Next, I need to refactor the documentation. Okay, so once the Obelisk RAG service starts, right now it's a monolithic Python app, but it's going to be separated out. Documents hit the embeddings pipeline, where right now I'm chunking documents more or less by section. So you know how you have different headers. You have your top level header, which is like one hashtag #, whatever. And then for the lower levels, you have 2 and 3. Right now, I'm chunking on 1 and 2 headers. I'm going to improve chunking later. I only just got chat and RAG working in the last couple of days, and now I'm refactoring the code so it's not just a heaping pile. But that's gone really well and really fast. So after it chunks the document, it runs it through a vector embedding model. So vector embeddings, have you gotten into that on this channel much?
Not yet, but I've used vector embeddings in the case of like semantic caching before.
Yeah.
So effectively, if you're trying to cache your prompts out to an LLM, you'd use a vector DB in the form of an embedding. And that way you don't have to go out to the actual LLM to retrieve your response. You can just retrieve it from the vector DB.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually want to build that feature in next. I was seeing that. I'm using, actually, I think you called me out for it because I didn't use Kong, but
That's okay.
I'm too poor for Kong, okay?
That's fine. I'll talk to Reza about that.
Right? I would actually love to build Kong into this architecture, if there was a way to, but I don't think I have free tier access to like the LLM proxies and stuff like that. So at the moment I'm using light LLM proxy, which is pretty cool because as a container, I wonder if I have, where do I don't, my container architecture. There we go. This one is kind of cool. So the container build is basically you have your user and then they engage with Open Web UI. At the moment, since the MCP isn't hooked up yet, but it will be an alternative interface. So you choose either your MCP interface or the Open Web UI chat. And then the Open Web UI hits the light LLM proxy. So the idea is you can choose between local Llama models or cloud-hosted LLMs like OpenAI or Claude. And that's how you actually get your LLM APIs. And then all of those are served back to Open Web UI as a standard OpenAI endpoint, API endpoint. When content gets chunked by Obelisk RAG, it ends up putting the vector into the vector database. It started off with ChromaDB, which is what's currently implemented in the Python code. But I built the Milvus container and integration. So Open Web UI is already hooked into Milvus. All I have to do is change the Obelisk Python RAG from ChromaDB to using the existing Milvus container endpoint. And then I should have the vector days be shared again between my Python code and Open Web UI so that they share the same vector database. And then light LLM proxies all the different calls that go back and forth while it's querying the RAG and then bringing the RAG results back to the prompt and then sending the prompt back to your LLM of choice, and then shipping that back to your chat interface once it generates. So you get cool things like this. And this is the first iteration, so don't judge me. Right now, the context window is so tiny because it's running Llama 3 and it takes like a couple minutes for it to generate a response off of CPU. But I can say, what is Obelisk? And then if you look in the Obelisk RAG docs, logs, it's really cool because you can see it pulled 5 chunks out of the vector database and provided that along with the prompt to Llama 3 to say, hey, can you answer this question? And so it says, according to the provided documentation, Obelisk RAG retrieval augmented generation system is designed to provide context-aware AI interactions. So it's not the answer I really want to see it producing right now, but once I flip it over to supporting bigger models, like public models like ChatGPT and Claude, I can bump the context window way up, and it'll start giving much more well-rounded response.
This is very cool, and I could see this working for docs, but I could also see this, like, I have a ridiculous amount of stuff I've written in Markdown for my blogs.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to get it to, see if I wrote something in the past about it, or there's just a lot of knowledge like packed into my blog over the last 15 years or whatever. If I could have that dump easily into an LLM to answer questions like that alone could be really useful. And I feel like it'd be pretty easy to do that with this. I already have the repository.
But like if you have blogs written on how to do something, and have you ever used like Claude Code, for example?
No.
So Claude Code is pretty cool. It's kind of like the chat integration in what is it? Hey, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
It's kind of like the chat integration in Windsurf and Cursor IDEs, but it's all on the CLI. It's just an NPM package. So there's like things that I really want to do with it, building it into web UIs and stuff. But you can attach MCP servers to it, which is basically just, it's kind of funny because it's a very opinionated API, more or less, and you could accomplish the same things with an open API spec. And there's some neat conversation out there around some of the pros and cons of both approaches. But basically, it's becoming a pretty industry standard way to connect LLMs to tooling, so that it can run in local commands or execute some code or query other information sources, whether they're APIs, other agents, or in this case, vector databases. So if you
have a preferred vector database by chance?
Huh?
Do you have a preferred vector database that you like to use?
So far, I'm just dipping my toe in the water. I started off with ChromaDB just because everything has some really easy interface for that right now, and it's all local, and you don't have to like spin up another service. But once I had my first success, I started building up the infrastructure in the Docker Compose to replace ChromaDB with Milvus. Milvus is actually really cool because you can store arbitrary data with it with your vectors in an arbitrary schema, so that I can include the date the document was created, the document name itself, a hash of the document is something I'm going to do, so I can actually maintain revisions over time. And they're all separated out into different collections. So you can have, it's kind of like different databases in a Postgres or SQL database. You have one service and you can have lots of different collections for your vector database. So if you had a collection for blog material and a collection for documentation and a collection for code or something like that, I don't know. I'm going to play with that some. But like one of the designs that I have not implemented yet, but I have planned here in this diagram, is hashing a document before I upload it, so that I can see if that content is already uploaded or not, or if it's a new revision of a previous document, so that I can go in and delete the previous vectors, or at least start doing some versioning, because I can do semantic versions in the metadata data fields there too. These are solved problems that other people have figured out before. I'm just exploring the space at this point for the first time. Yeah. So Milvus, maybe, is what I'm playing with. Pinecone was pretty cool when I was first like dipping my toe, just generically into the AI space. I didn't use it significantly myself. But it is another vector database that's kind of popular in the cloud. It is all cloud first, so they deploy their services in different regions around, like AWS, for example, and then you can just call their AWS endpoints that are regionalized for the workloads that are calling the database.
So right now, this whole thing is running locally on your local Mac system.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's just using Docker Compose, bring up the containers, and run it locally.
Yep. Actually, I started it on the Mac for the first time this morning. I've been developing it on an Intel laptop with an NVIDIA GPU. And it actually works faster on that right now because I haven't figured out how to enable the TPU on Mac in the Olama container, Docker container yet, since I only just flipped it over to the Mac right before this stream. So,
okay.
But it should actually work better on the Mac because of the TPU.
Gotcha. Yeah, I wonder. I have a Windows ARM laptop.
Oh, really? Ooh, you're playing with some bleeding edge stuff.
Because I hate myself.
Bleeding in that bleeding.
I hate myself. Oh, come on.
In fairness, like most stuff actually just works on the laptop. They've gotten the translation layer pretty down for anything that's not compiled for ARM. It runs slower, but it runs. But when I start getting into stuff like this, that anything that involves containers or where I really do have to compile it myself sometimes, I've had to do that, like clone some repositories and build them locally, targeting my architecture because people haven't included that in the pipeline yet.
Honestly, when this started up on the Mac, I was surprised. I was like, I was expecting to have to fix more stuff. So yeah, that's containers doing the magical container thing correctly. I was really impressed.
What they're supposed to do.
Right? Yeah. But it works on Intel and ARM, and I was really, really excited about that because ultimately I want to build just an Obelisk server on one of the Ampere platforms at some point. I would really, really like to do Ampere with a couple of 5090s in it.
Ooh, that would sound delicious.
Yeah, some people were showing benchmarks of the 5090s running something like 65,000 tokens a second.
Whew, okay. I don't even think my 3080 from like back in 2021 could keep up with anything that we have today. Like I'm a little upset that I held on to that system for so long, and now I can barely even process maybe 100 tokens per minute.
Yeah, I haven't dropped significant bank on server hardware in a few years, and I'm starting to feel like it's going to be worth it because I am doing plenty of vibe coding. I mean, Obelisk is all built with vibe coding, so I could not churn out an idea like this fast otherwise. It just wouldn't happen. Like I could do it, it would just take months instead of days.
So let me ask you, what is your vibe coding setup?
So I was bouncing back and forth between Cursor and Windsurf there for a bit. I like Cursor because it does its own local kind of embeddings. It's actually not local. They provide the vector database as part of their SaaS, but all of your code stays local. All you're doing is using their vector service, which is kind of what I want to do with Obelisk, is serve just the vectors as a SaaS possibly. So that you upload your documentation or whatever, and then you have MCP access to it, and you can chat with it however you want. Because most people aren't necessarily going to want to run their own LLMs. So I feel like that's actually a pretty low resource SaaS to operate. I don't know. We'll see. Shit, I forgot the question.
Your vibe coding setup.
Yeah, the vibe coding setup. So, and then Windsurf seemed to take the cake there for a little bit as Cursor was yanking some of their best features, and people jumped ship there for a minute. But right now, I've just been in Claude Code almost full time. So I'm just in the terminal most of the time. I'll render stuff in preview or whatever in the IDE, but I haven't been doing much actual IDE usage, and I'm half tempted to see what people are doing because I have a pretty good NeoVim setup in Conductor Dev Container, and I'm thinking about seeing what people are doing to integrate Claude Code because I might just be okay staying in NeoVim again soon, which honestly would make me happy. I kind of miss just being on the CLI.
Now, I haven't tried any of this vibe coding stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen memes about it on like LinkedIn and Blue Sky.
I'm sure, Ned, you've been vibe coding and just not realizing it.
I don't. So can someone just like ground it for me? Explain it to me like I'm the 5-year-old that I am.
You know what? Why don't we do a little vibe coding here?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right. Let me
I can stop I'll stop this sharing, and then if you want to reshare another screen.
Yeah, I'm gonna get my IDE ready for show here.
It's like, I almost feel like, from my point of view, you're in the terminal, you're in like some IDE, and you start writing your thing, your code. We were kind of doing it, if you think about it, when we were, earlier on in our streams with Copilot. You would start writing out some of that code, and then all of a sudden it would just auto-complete it for you, or just give you suggestions. That is essentially vibe coding, except there's an element of, I'm going to accept what it gives me versus I'm going to question what it gives me. And I realized, like, a lot of vibe coders without a real heavy development background just tend to accept the suggestions and then be on their way, and then pay for it later on when they compile and realize how broken their actual app is. It was interesting. I went to a meetup yesterday in Toronto, AI Tinkerers meetup, and like the conversation of vibe coding came up a few times. And someone just flat out said to me, like, you've got the two kinds of vibe coders. That's where I kind of started off this talk about it. And they were saying, like, if you truly got the development background and you really understand structures, algorithms, it's beyond just syntax, but you understand the foundational elements of programming stack, then you'll do really well at vibe coding. But if you have no concept of it, you're running the risk of like buffer overflows or various other issues in your code that might lead to memory leaks, might lead to insecure operations, might just like crash somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's just because folks don't have that fundamental background. Let me just add this to stage. All right, you're going to vibe code with us.
All right. So this is Obelisk open in, are we on M.A.I.N? Yeah, we're totally on M.A.I.N. Cool. So I'm going to start Claude. This is in Conductor. So all of my dev environment is built in a container, in a dev container. And then I also have a kind of boilerplate DevOps repo called Conductor. And it includes like Claude Code and all of the other things I use for, I cover JavaScript and like NPM stuff in here. Got Go, Python, and a couple of other things sort of covered, but those are the three that I actually have really enabled in this dev container. And so I just say Claude, and then it can be like, I will just kind of set up some context by giving it a directory tree of the repo and be like, oh yeah, actually, It updated. Sweet. No, it updated. What?
Was that a vibe code update? Like it just auto updated itself?
Yeah, it is alpha software. It is not expected to be stable. Oh my god. That's amazing. Yep. Okay. So we're actually gonna. Why did I do updates live? That was dumb. Akansha, hey.
Hey, Akansha.
Remember, this is a no pressure vibey kind of situation.
I know, but I haven't actually seen an update break it before. So that was kind of interesting. But this is why I have a containerized environment, right?
I just
control versions of all the things.
I just realized we don't have our background music going.
Oh no.
I can hear it.
Oh, you
unless
can?
I'm hearing things, which is also possible.
Oh, what? Hold on. Maybe it's me.
Oh yeah, I can hear it just a tiny bit.
There we go. Now it's back. I don't know. For some reason, it disappeared for me. There we go. Now we got our vibe coding going on.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're gonna try again here.
So, are you rebuilding your environment from a previous version?
Yeah, I'm just restarting the dev container because it'll still have the previous version of Claude code in there, so it should not blow up again.
Oh, Mark is right. You deployed on a Friday.
Not a bad thing if you know exactly what you're doing and you know what could break.
I was gonna say, I was just reading a blog from Uber last night as my bedtime reading, and they, I guess they made the transition to Kubernetes in 2024. And they're running something like 3 million cores around the world.
Wow, okay.
3 million cores, but only 50 clusters. Those are big clusters.
Yeah.
Really, really cool stuff. They even dropped JSON they flipped from JSON to protobuf for serialization, and a bunch of other really interesting tweaks. I need to read more. I only made it halfway through the blog.
So that's 60,000 cores per cluster.
Yeah. That's between 5,000 and 7,500 nodes per cluster too. Which honestly, I feel should not be so shocking, but it is. That's really big.
That's bananas.
It's yeah. I have dreams to scale something that big. I don't know what yet, but something.
Obelisk.
Right? I do want to get Olama is not the best for deploying LLMs. It's the best for end users that want to run their own as far as ease of access, because you can just start Olama container on anything and it'll balance models between CPU and GPU and stuff like that for you, so you don't have to think about it. But performance, you really want to go with something else like VLLM or something like that. So at some point, I do want to really tune it in and start benchmarking it and have a benchmarking framework in here. But honestly, I don't really know what the roadmap's going to look like, because it's really just my explore AI application architecture and development workbench. So we'll just have to see where it goes. All right, we're almost there. I'm sorry. Once it's all built, it's like a 5 gig dev container.
I had to put together a demo for IAC Conf, which is in a few weeks, and it had to be tying Terraform and Ansible together.
Yeah.
And I built the demo almost entirely by chatting with Claude in VS Code.
Okay, so you do know exactly what vibe coding is.
Okay, so that would be considered vibe coding, because I still looked through the code and made my own tweaks and changes, but
yeah,
it spit out the bulk of what I ended up using.
Yeah.
I just had to say, okay, no, I want you to do it this way or add these variables. What was really nice is I wanted my input variables in alphabetical order and they weren't. And I was like, hey, alphabetize this. And I just did it.
Yeah, exactly.
That would take me like 5 minutes and nope, it's done.
Honestly, I don't get tripped up over single character mistakes as much anymore. Because if I have a syntax error in a file, I literally just tell Claude to fix it, and it's like, oh, you have a colon instead of a semicolon, or colon here, or vice versa, right? Something that would be so annoying to spot. And I mean, sometimes you're working with applications that give very specific errors about what line the error occurred on and things like that, but some of them do not give helpful errors, and then you're stuck trying to read a 5,000 line document and find out where your syntax error is. And you can use tools like JQ or YQ and stuff to start paring that down sometimes, but it's not a one size fits all, and LLMs find that stuff really, really well.
Yeah.
All right. So now, all right, let's see it work. Yes. All right, so this is actually kind of cool. So you launch Claude Code, and then it's like, hey, sign in on the browser. No. Go authorize. Copy. Okay, fine.
Is this free at the moment?
No.
No.
No. I spend about a Starbucks coffee a day on this.
I guess that depends on your Starbucks coffee order.
It does. Yeah, for sure. A fancy Starbucks coffee a day. Let's see. Yes, I trust this code. Okay. So let's try this again and not update it.
Go ahead and quickly research the docs and code in this project and explain what it is. Interesting. Ooh. We're getting to the point where we just, speak everything into reality at this point.
Yep.
Yeah. I was thinking about that earlier today, how imprecise the English language is and how that's going to become, it seems like that's going to become a detriment if you can't speak very precisely to your whatever LLM you're using, because there's a lot of margin for error just from the way you phrase something.
Are you suggesting that the folks in Quebec can't speak or won't be able to use AI because they don't speak they speak French as their main language?
I think I don't know. Don't let me put words in your mouth, Ned, but I think phrasing matters more here than just specific words. Sometimes individual words can matter, but I think one of the things I like about vibe coding is I have to actually think out the entire process a little more verbosely and speak it out loud. It's like being forced to rubber duck your ideas while you're developing instead of just writing the code and then seeing if we're actually heading in the right direction.
That's a really good point. When I was learning program in college, you were supposed to sit down and have a design conversation before you wrote anything and write a design document and all that jazz. And then I never actually did that because that seemed like a huge waste of time. I'm just going to sit down and start banging away on a keyboard. But this seems like it's forcing you to write the design doc as part of a chat.
Exactly. And then the chat can help fill out your docs based on how it actually worked after it's all tested. And LLMs write all of my testing coverage. Oh my
Oh,
gosh. I am
that is
so
amazing.
tired of writing tests, and they just do it, and I'm so happy. Unbelievably happy about them writing the test coverage.
So it says LinkedIn user, and I had to go to LinkedIn to find out who this was. And it's actually Boris. So hello, Boris. Thank you
Hey,
for
Boris.
coming by.
It's been a minute.
I don't know Boris, or maybe I do.
Boris Levinson. Sound familiar? Yeah, I think he's in our Discord, right? The container craft one.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah. Haven't seen him in there chatting in a minute, but I hope you're doing okay, Boris.
Boris is
Hi.
busy. I know. He's doing a lot. He's
Yeah.
balancing multiple loads at once.
So what are you doing now?
So I manually did Docker PS to show it what containers were running. And then I was like, can you do Docker logs on each individual container to assess the health of each service? Curl is not allowed? Excuse me. Yes, it is. Ugh. Okay, fine. I don't think that's actually going to JQ parse correctly. But let's see. Without JQ. Are you serious?
You should come hang out with us more, Boris. We do these weekly. Maybe Kat should become a regular. Right, Kat? Do you want to be a regular?
I'm totally down. I'm getting into some new platform engineering stuff that I'm sure I can rant and rave about happily, in the future if you need to fill air. Apparently Claude is getting more strict with what it can and can't do right now.
Oh no.
I know, rules around AI, right?
Might just have to build our own LLM, or build on top of one in LM Studio or something like that. By the way, do you all use LM Studio at all?
I haven't. What do you do in there?
So it's kind of a system where you can go in and just download a bunch of models from Hugging Face and treat it like ChatGPT, except it doesn't have access to the internet, so it's just pretty localized. So if you're trying to do some local coding and you're doing some testing as well, it could actually even serve up a server as well if you wanted to access it from another system or a container. And I've been using it a little bit. Like if I want to transcribe some of my calls, I can. I have another tool called Mac Whisper that points to LM Studio. LM Studio processes everything, and it costs me nothing except the CPU and electricity and whatever else that I have locally on my Mac Mini, which is pretty damn awesome.
Yeah, no, that is really cool. I'm gonna actually open that up real quick so I remember to check it later. Let's see.
Is this gonna go into one of the 1,000 tabs that you, like the rest of us, have open?
I really don't need to be called out like that in public. Come on, be nice.
So
I'm guilty of it. I have 5 windows. Sorry, go ahead.
If I have more than 10 tabs open, I get itchy. I start closing them. I can't.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I couldn't.
I wish I had that willpower.
I have over 300 tabs open just on my phone.
I would scream and run away in terror.
You have good practices there, Ned.
No, I also like the desktop of my Windows. I can't have any icons on the desktop.
Oh no, yeah, no, hell no.
If I install an application and it puts an icon on my desktop, I curse like a sailor and then write them an angry email.
I am very much the same way with respect to random icons. So every so often I'll take screenshots of things, and in Mac it just defaults to your desktop. And sometimes I just look at that and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna shove everything into something called new folder. And I'll come back and revisit it later on. No, I don't. I think in Mac it's called Untitled folder, if I'm correct, if I'm not mistaken.
He forces with me. After 5 tabs, he gets itchy.
I feel that too.
Claude is being really unsuccessful today. It's really weird. I'm surprised.
Folder 4, 3,
I mean, I am
2,
doing
5,
it on the
6.
Mac today, which I haven't before, but I did not expect that to be different inside the dev container, so I don't know. Oh, I see what it's trying to do. It's trying to add files that were removed, but let's see. Oh, man, there's so many little differences between my Windows setup on the laptop and my Mac setup on the... Why is everything so different and not the same? I tried to containerize my developer environment and it's still not perfect. This is why I like code bases.
You're switching operating systems and architectures, so like I would be impressed if it was seamless.
So on the laptop, I do HTTP auth against GitHub. And on the Mac, I originally set up like fancy GitHub CLI pass-through authentication into the dev container and uses one password to sign commits, which, anyway, it's passing through into the dev container right now and trying to use a Mac file path for GitHub CLI, and I need to obfuscate the path so it'll still work in the container, apparently.
Nice use of obfuscate, though.
What?
Nice use of the word obfuscate. A word I have trouble saying.
I like my 3-syllable words.
Yeah.
All right, we're coming up at the end of our hour here.
Yeah. What's coming up on your shows next in the future? Like, what have you guys been covering? What's the action we're looking forward to?
We've kind of tangented a bit and like taken various directions with having some guests on and like exploring some other things. We still have like this project that we're working on that we haven't really finished yet.
Yeah.
I think we'll finish it in 2 more streams. We're getting there. We're getting real close.
I think part of the problem is we haven't put like really well-defined parameters on what finished is, because it's all started as like, well, we just want to see if we can cobble this thing together.
What are you cobbling together?
Just some Lambda functions that will take an MP3 file and transcribe it and then send it to Bedrock to interpret what's in the MP3 file. And it's because I have entirely too many podcasts. I wanted something that I could like just drop the podcast somewhere and have it make everything else. Like, give me the transcript, summarize it for me, write a blog post, write me 6 social posts, like all that jazz. And we got as far as dropping it in the S3 bucket and getting the transcript and the initial interpretation. So I think we have to, Marino, you and I have to define what done is and then work towards that goal.
So I have a really good friend / coworker. His name is Cody, and his response to us would be, I'm going to give you a form that tells you what the definition of done is. So we'd have to fill that out and then hand it back to him so we can grade it. We should probably have Cody on, but he would never want to join up this call. And I think, Kat, you probably know Cody, right?
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Cody Bunch. I think you know Cody Bunch too, right? Ned?
I know him on the internet. I don't know if I've ever met him in person.
Well, it was a real treat for me to find out that when I joined Kong that I'd be on his team, because we honestly shoot the shit a lot. I think we get more shooting the shit done than actually work. But anyways,
as it should be.
All right, we are at the end. I want to thank everyone. I want to thank you, Kat, for coming by and telling us about Obelisk. Obelisk. How do you pronounce it again?
Obelisk. It's like those pillars of stone that you see hieroglyphics written on. Obelisk.
I love it. Well, thank you so much again. And you know what? I do hope you become a regular, because
I'd love to.
we could all be vibe coding together and figuring shit out. But
Right.
we do have to get back to our day jobs. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. And we hope you have a good Friday and a good weekend. And we'll see you next week. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Boris is like, we need more. Yes, we absolutely need more. All right. See y'all.